Welcome back to another edition of Where's a Teaspoon? Today we're speaking to Ben Pearson, who's going to be sharing an interesting travel experience with us today. Welcome, Ben. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
So, Ben, you're the medical director here at DCHS. Can you tell us a little bit about that role and what it entails?
Yeah, sure. It's a statutory role, which means the organisation has to have a medical director. I carry responsibility for the doctors in the organisation, and with Michelle Bateman, I share responsibility around the clinical and professional activities of the trust and its employees. I'm what's called the responsible officer for the doctors, so I've got to provide assurance to the General Medical Council that they have their appraisals and are doing what they should do. And also I'm the Caldecott Guardian, which carries responsibilities around how information of both staff and patients that we look after is used. Pretty wide-ranging job, get involved in training and education research as well.
And how long have you been with DCHS?
I joined in June 2019, and Rick Meredith was the previous medical director. He'd decided he was ready for retirement, and when I joined, I needed to sort of hit the ground running, really. And then before we knew it, we were into the pandemic. So it's been quite a busy few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And so perhaps as a result of those busy few years, Ben, you recently took a sabbatical. Can you tell us what prompted that and why you wanted to take that extended period away from
Sure.
work?
I mean, people call it a sabbatical. Honestly, it was a holiday, so it was unpaid leave. And it wasn't a sabbatical in the sense of doing work somewhere else in the country or the world. So there's been a few occasions in the past where I've taken a period of leave like this, often between jobs, when there was a sort of natural gap, as it were. I'm lucky in that I've always had a job, and I've always worked full time, but that brings with it elements of, quite stressful. You feel like work is everything, and it isn't. It's really helpful to mind and body to go and explore new places and have new experiences, and just properly forget about work for a while.
Yes, yeah. So tell us about your time off. What did you do?
Well, it was long in the planning. I didn't the situation when I joined DCHS, as I said, I needed to start straight away. There wasn't the opportunity to have a break at that point. But Tracy was absolutely brilliant. Before I even started the job, I'd had a conversation with her saying this was something I'd like to do. It was something I'd done before. And she was really supportive, as were the rest of the organisation. So it was a sort of yes and the and bit was the planning. So really needed to make sure my job was covered, and it was an opportunity for people to act up, to flex their own roles. But I'm fortunate to have a fantastic team that I work with, and everyone was just so helpful in being able to support me to do that. So yeah, long in the planning, and of course, because of the pandemic years, travel was a no-no completely, and it was a while before we could realistically make any plans or decisions. And we were determined, my partner Phil and I, to get back to Australia. That was our big aim, and it's really most of the fun is in the planning.
Yeah.
You sort of think, shall we go here, shall we go there? And we've got friends and family out there as well, so that needed to be incorporated into the plans. We wanted to go back to some places that we've seen before, but as I say, try something new.
So you've been to Australia before? You've been
Yes,
previously, yeah.
and we've done sort of quite off-road, out of the way, outbacky type stuff, rough camping, things like that,
Oh,
but
you're
with an
brave.
organised group. Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't
In
done it off our
Australia,
own
yeah.
bat. I mean, it's got its hazards as Australia,
Yeah.
so yeah, you need to be with an organised group who know what they're doing. So this time we did that in the very north of the country. So we started in Darwin and got on a group tour, small group tour, that went into Arnhem Land. So that is indigenous country owned by the Aboriginal people. You need sort of permits to get in there. It's very remote. We got up to a place called the Coburg Peninsula, right at the very top, and just incredible scenery and wildlife. Beautiful, beautiful coast and sea, but you can't go anywhere near the water because of the saltwater crocodiles.
Yeah. It's terrifying, isn't it?
Got some good
Yeah.
pictures of those. We had some local guides who were able to show us some of their sacred sites, some of the rock paintings, tell the stories of their culture, and we really got a deep understanding of that issue around Indigenous culture in Australia and the peoples, and how they cope or manage, or indeed don't cope and manage, given a lot of Western influence. So that was just something we'll probably never do again. So completely different and so remote as well.
Yeah. How long did you spend in Australia then, Ben? How long did you take off?
It was 2 months in all, and we packed the time. So left the UK virtually right at the very start of that period, and got back with just a few days to spare before coming back to work. And we were north, south, east, west. Down in the southwest of the country, we hired a car from Fremantle near Perth and drove all the way down around the coast. And I think one of the most interesting places there was a town right on the south coast called Albany, and it was a whaling centre. So 100 odd years ago, that was the industry, hunting whales, making use of every part of the animal. And nowadays we think, oh, that's not good. There are whaling bans across the world, and incredible creatures that are protected now. But that was how people earned their living, and it was how the town survived. So there's a museum there, and you can see exactly what they did, and again, listen to the stories and hear people talk from that time about what it meant to work in that industry.
So you traveled all around the country. What was your favorite area or favorite experience of that trip?
Oh, there's so many. Personally, I think being in the remote places where you think to yourself, it's really, really hard to get here, and I probably won't get here again. So you're just absorbing the smells, the colours, the sounds, the people you talk to, and it completely takes you away from what you might call your routine life. So it fills your head with all of these new experiences, and then that stays with you, for ages and ages. And you look back at your pictures and you talk about it. Phil and I talk about it all the time. Do you remember when, or that picture? And it's incredibly refreshing to do that. It's really good to reset mentally and physically.
Were there any particular cultural differences you noticed in Australia compared to England?
So yes, that bit I mentioned about the Northern Territory and visiting the Aboriginal peoples, for the first time, I think I really understood how they are an oral culture. In other words, they tell stories.
Mm.
Everything is communicated by word of mouth and by telling stories. Nothing is written down. And we look at the pictures that they have, the cave paintings, the wall paintings, the rock art, and you think, that looks pretty simplistic. It looks like something a child might do at school. And they've been doing these paintings for 40, 60,000 years. And I think in the past, I'd had quite a prejudiced and ignorant view that those paintings weren't very good.
Mm.
Actually, that's not what they're for at all. They're just prompts. And they're like, they're for their children in a way to prompt the story to be told. And the stories they tell, the tourists, people like us, are the
Mm.
stories they would tell their children because we wouldn't understand the more involved and detailed
Yeah,
storytelling.
yeah,
And that was just fascinating to me, that you can have a whole culture and everything is just by word of mouth. There's no books.
yeah. It's good to challenge your own thinking, isn't it, with those new experiences. I wonder, now that you're back, what impact did the trip have on you when you reflect? Like how has it changed your state of being or your mind or
So that bit about being completely free of work and work thoughts is
mm,
important, I think. Certainly
mm,
has been for me. And it gives you a bit of a reset, and it gives you some energy to carry on in the way that you need to. Um, I think, you make new friends and new connections. I mentioned friends and family that we've got out there. Well, um, a cousin of Phil's happens to be over in the country, and we're making the effort to get down to the south coast and see them at the weekend, which would be a really long journey just for one night. But
yeah.
from an Australian perspective, that's nothing.
Yeah,
They think nothing of driving 5 or 6 hours to visit friends or family and back again in a day.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so I think that refresh, that reset, um, and quite important for me personally to bring that energy back to work and that commitment back to work.
yeah, yeah. And how did it feel going back to work after such a long break? Did you have back to work blues?
Yeah, you do, don't you, when you see the size of your email inbox
Oh
and things
yeah.
like
How
that.
many emails did you have?
Thousands.
Oh no.
Oh, thousands. But
Mm,
it was also so positive because people welcomed me back, were glad to see me. I was
mm,
really keen to hear all the gossip, to catch up, to chat. Um, as I say, I have a fantastic team of people around me and who I'm privileged to work with. And they've done such a great job in my absence that picking up where I left off was easy from that
mm,
regard. Again, it's all
yeah,
in the planning.
yeah. When you originally asked for the time off, did it feel hard? Did you feel any guilt or any conflict of emotions? Because it's quite a big ask, isn't it? 2 months, you feel the weight of that responsibility. How did you feel about that?
It is a big ask. I think because I've done it before, I knew how important it was to plan incredibly thoroughly. So
Mm,
I wouldn't have just gone to Tracy and said, right, you know, in a couple of months' time, I want 2 months off, because
yeah.
that's unrealistic. But I explained that I had done it before, and that with a good 18 months to 2 years notice, and that's the sort of length of time I was talking,
Yeah,
that it,
wow,
it would,
okay.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I mean, it depends what you want to do, doesn't it? You might just want time off to, I don't know, spend time with somebody important to you, or to
mm,
visit places really close to home, or it might not be about traveling. It might just be about the time and the choices that you want to make. But even so, covering the work bit, there's an important responsibility there. So I didn't feel guilty as such, but I knew that the planning was incredibly important.
Mm. What advice would you offer to any other colleagues who are thinking about taking some time off?
Oh, do it if you can, or do it in a way that you can.
Mm.
I mean, just taking annual leave, I think, is incredibly important. Um, in the public sector and in the NHS, annual leave is quite generous compared to working for a private company.
Yeah.
So take it, and absolutely don't feel guilty about taking annual leave. That time away from work is really important. And then if you do have big plans and you want a longer period of time, talk about it. Talk to your team, talk to your line manager, talk to your partner or the people that you might want to spend that time with, and see what the art of the possible is. I think the benefits outweigh the downsides.
Yeah, yeah. So, any other trips in the pipeline? Are you already planning your next one now?
Well, anyone who knows me will know the answer to that question is always yes. That
Yeah.
we've always got some plans. We have a week of annual leave in May, and we're doing something again that we've never done before. Going to a place we've never been before, which is the Azores, islands owned by Portugal in the middle of the Atlantic, very well known for whale watching and the sort of marine natural world. So booked that through Trail Finders and got a week, see what happens. Hopefully,
Yeah.
some more great pictures, hopefully.
Have you travelled a lot throughout your life, Ben?
Yes, and it's always been my choice. And, over the, gosh, what is it, 23 years Phil and I have been together, that's been our choice as partners to
Yeah.
do that. We don't have children, we're not bringing up a family. There are choices that we all make in life, and ours is to save the money and travel.
I think that sounds like an amazing choice. Do you have a favourite place that you visited? Any standout trips?
Just before lockdown, just before the pandemic began, it was January, big 2020, we were in Costa Rica, and that just blew us away with the wildlife, but also the country and its approach to sustainable tourism. There are no plastic bottles in Costa Rica, and everywhere has a water refill station. And if you didn't bring a water bottle with you, they'll give you one. And it's just stuff like that that you go to a different country and you find a different way of doing stuff. And I have to say, most of the countries we've been to, the roads are in a lot better shape than they are here.
The potholes in Derbyshire are insane at the moment. Yeah.
Driving in Australia was a dream compared to here.
Oh, Ben, thank you so much for talking to us today. I'm just going to go off and visit a travel agents now, I think. I think that's really inspirational, and it's such a good reminder about the importance of a break and a change of scenery. So
Thank you.
hopefully people are inspired by you.
Been a pleasure to chat about it.
Fab. Thank you so much, Ben.